Hello friends, welcome to the session. Today we'll discuss political thoughts of Rabindra Nath Tagore. Friends, Rabindranath Tagore also referred as Guruji in terms of Indian culture. He has been conferred with the Nobel Prize for his writing Gitanjali. And the political ideas or the social ideas, or we can say the ideas about nation, about the India, reflects in the motto of Vishwa Bharati, which he established, and the motto was Yatra Vishwam Bhavati Eka Nidam, meaning the world is a one nest. We all are part of a big nest, and it is everyone's responsibility to play his identity, his or her identity, to play his part in the making process of this world. He emphasized the creative energy of human spirit, which we are guided by in Indian system. We are guided by the Upanishadic doctrine of Satyam, Shivam and Advaitam, means the truth, the goodness, and Advaitam means the integrity or the unity with the Almighty. So, Rabindranath Tagore was the first and foremost a poet, a visionary of the world, a visionary of the society, who in the beginning of the 20th century has visualized the world which was going to take shape after 200 or 300 years. He has strong views on political states of affairs of India during his time, and also about the words. He also prescribed the social and moral predicaments brought about by the British rule in India. Through his works, through his literary works, whether the novels, whether the poetry, whether the short stories, he always tried to put light on the situations. He always tried to issue the points, issue the societal problems which were predominant in that time. Okay, he was also a very staunch critic of the world political situation between the two world wars and the rise of nationalism during that period, both in India and the world outside. We can consider him as a philosopher, and if you look at the political canvas of India, there are few personalities who you can, very few political personalities who you can also termed as the philosophers. Some of them are, of course, Rabindranath Tagore. One you can also termed as Aurobindo Ghosh, or you can say Jayaprakash Narayanan is also of that category. M.N. Roy, who also provided some of the philosophy. That is why these thinkers, there were many politicians at that time, but only few of them has passed their way to establish themselves as a philosopher also, because philosophy not only needs a description of the political things, but it also coordinate itself with the culture of the contemporary period, the social problems, the answers to those problems. So Tagore was definitely one of them who tried to solve those problems. And one may definitely ask the question that why should we get interested in the political thought of a poet who was not even a politician in a technical or professional sense? You will not see that Tagore adjoins himself with some political party or some particular political ideology. So why there is so much need to search about such a person? Now, the answer is Tagore had definite political speculations which were rich in the sense. How rich? They were not only the political speculations, but they also were covering the cultural aspect of India, the social aspect of India, what India is going to become, what should India look like after she attains her freedom. So the ideas of Tagore were rich. They were covering many identities. They were systematic, and obviously they were critical, means that they were unconventional in the nature. That is why they catch so much of attention in the perspective of world political thought. Now, the most important contribution of Tagore is the interpretation of history in a new way that was different from all other previous political thinkers. Tagore's political ideas do not tread the familiar and conventional path like the socialism interpretation of history or the Marxist interpretation of history or the dynastic, the exploitation, conquerors, invader. The whole of the history is filled with those things. But Tagore provide a very different view. He says that it is the unity, it is the harmony among the people, it is the evolution of better human beings. It is the phase-wise development of humanity which should be taught in history. The history is more beyond the wars, the battles, the conquests, the dynastic intrigues, and the quarrel of rulers. The history contains much more than that. Because in the early 20th century or in the late 19th century, we can say the history writing has become more Marxist perspective. It was containing more of the Marxist perspective. Then it was also containing the class struggle, the winnings, the First World War, the Napoleon era, the Roman era, the Alexander the Great era. Then in India, if we talk about the Chandraguptan era, the historians used to say that whole history is the history of wars, conquests, and battles. But Tagore's, with some other political thinkers like Deen Dayal Upadhyay also put out the same idea. The Indian history is somewhat different. It is the history of social development. It is the history of harmony. It is the history of uniting the people. People from different social identities, people from different religious beliefs were used to keep living in this geographical escape for more than thousands of years. And without any contradiction between each other. They were all believing their own ideas. They were all have faith in their own aspirations, but they were not conquesting with each other. So this was a view that was provided by Rabindranath Tagore, and in such a way, a different, an alternative interpretation of history. Now, what was the history of India? How India evoluted as a nation. So in his study of India's history, Tagore accepts dialectics of development. The essence of dialectic development is comprised by the existence of two mutually contradictory aspects. And the conflicts was from the Marxist perspective. Okay, Marx talk about the dialectic in the sense of class struggle. But according to Tagore, it will be futile. It will be more useful to look for a Marxist critique for imperialism or capitalism in Tagore's perception of history. He interpreted the history of India without giving predominance to the productive forces of the society, but with reference to the peculiarity of the social forces and the relationships among the people of different classes, among the people of different beliefs, among the people of different social identities. So this was the interpretation of Tagore. This was the Tagore's perception. He obviously talked about the dialectic. He obviously talk about the struggle. But that struggle was not about having the economic sources or having the distribution of income or about capturing the power sources. It was about how the society can evolve itself, how the society itself got developed from within inside, and how those developed societies relate to each other to form a united nation. So this was the idea of Tagore. Friends, definitely if you look at the history of India, it is somewhat different from the history of Europe or America or China or whatever the country you name, or African countries. The history of India do not have more of the emphasis on the power struggle. Okay, it was not more about the power or the wealth or the sources. It is all about establishing the social identities, how the people can, even if you have seen some of the instances, you must have observed that even after winning, like the Ashoka, even after winning a battle, winning a war, the ruler gave up. The ruler said, no, this is not the way so that I can develop my society. There is something different. And that is why the king, the ruler itself gave up his present religion or present belief and go into the field and look out for something different so that he can attain that path of salvation. Like Buddha, like Ashoka go with the Buddhism, and there are many other kings. Okay, and even in the modern times, if you have also seen, there are many politicians, there are many political, you can see the political people who are searching for a different path. Why? Because the main idea in Indian culture is of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And now dharma being an anchor between for attaining the calm, earth, and moksha part. So dharma is not considered in the sense of way of worship. You can have any way of worship. There is nothing prescribed in Indian culture particularly. Okay, you may have any way to praise your Almighty. Dharma is in the sense of duty. How your dharma can provide answers to your questions, whatever the questions you are conflicting with, how your dharma can provide the answers to that question. And this is something also available in the postmodernist thinking of the political science, postmodern theory of political science. It also talk about the whatever the belief you are following, it should be able to answer your questions. You should not remain glued with the old ideas. Okay, so now the conclusion. Tagore's concept of nationalism is different from the modern concept of it, which takes into account the phenomenon of race, language, ethnicity, religion, or nationalist myth. He was saying, a nation can have many races, many languages, and also Tagore was the child of his own contemporary times. His thinking was based upon the phenomenon of the late 19th century and the early 20th century. Okay, so he actually we can say dismantle the idea of having a unitary race or unitary language or unitary ethical structure of a country. He says that a country may contain many of them, but to develop as a society, that bond, that relationship between the people should be stronger, and everything should converge towards a common goal. And then that uniformity, or we can say that bonding of various languages, various races, various ethnicities will reflect in the political and economic structure of that country. So this is all for the lecture. Now we can come to the questions part. A question can be asked from you that what were the literary works of Tagore? So Tagore was, as I told you, a poet, a novelist. Apajog, Nastanir, Ghare, Baire, Gora. These are some very stories, novels of Tagore. In Gora in 1880, it is an expansive, exhaustive, extremely relevant novel which deals with the several themes like religion, gender, feminism, and also tradition against modernity. So these were not only the stories. With these stories, Tagore actually tried to provide an insight of the social traditions of India at those contemporary times. Chokher Bali, and there were the compilation of short stories like Bhikarini, Kabuliwala, Shudita, Pashan, Atorju, Hemanti, and Musalmanir Golpo. Poems like Balaka, Purobi, Sonar Tori, and Gitanjali. And Gitanjali was his work for which he conferred with the Nobel Prize in 1913. And the most important thing, he was the first non-European and lyricist to won the Nobel Prize from the non-European. He was the first non-European person in the literature. Okay. Second question that may be asked from you, and this is the more political question. According to Tagore, social identity of a nation is the basis of political identity of a nation. Discussion may be asked from you. As I told you, Tagore actually read about the events in the late 19th century and in the early 20th century, and the interpretation of history, the interpretation of Marxism, socialism that was evolving at his time, and then he provided that alternative view to look at history. that was different from the class struggle of Marxism. He provided that actually this is the relationship between the society, and this is actually the evolution of the society, which is actually form a nation. Okay, and any political phase or any particular social phase cannot be treated, cannot be termed as a nation. It is actually the mixture of everything that establishes a nation. Okay, so friends, that's all for the lecture. Thank you very much.